So, going back into the book in the chapter about the AIDS epidemic, I remember thinking way back then in the late 80s and early 90s, at one point I thought, you know, I could write a song. I mean, it sounds like a country western song, because I thought of this title, "If Tears Were Only Calories, Just Think How Thin I'd Be." Because it was just, you know, well, you just can't believe what happened. If you weren't there, you shouldn't ever even have to conceive of what we were going through. So lo and behold, this past year, which has been a very rough year, and Scott and I are working on a new project for Patti LuPone and Bridget Everett, and that's all I can say about that one, because I'm not allowed to say anything else, but we went to a writer's workshop. And I said to Scott, after all these other months of other loss, including the loss of mine and my husband Lou's dog, Chop, suddenly, just traumatic. And I said to him, you know, if ever there was a time to pull out that title, "If Tears Were Only Calories, Just Think How Thin I'd Be." And Scott said, well, let's write it. So with Scott's help, and this was so wonderful how Scott can tune in to what my thought was, and then suddenly we're thinking together. So this song is just about, well, you'll hear it. It's here I go, gonna sing it. Oh God. If tears were only calories, just think how thin I'd be. If suffering was a sailboat, you would find me out to sea. If heartache made you stronger, I could lift a 2-ton truck. And I'd go and play the lottery if loneliness was luck. If bitterness was breakfast, it would be my favorite meal. If no one home was Novocaine, I'd never have to feel. If dreams were like an echo, they would bring love back to me. And if tears were only calories, just think how thin I'd be. If demons paid the rent, I'd have the biggest house in town. If hopelessness was helium, you'd never get me down. If depression was a cocktail, I would have it on the rocks. And if moodiness was money, my address would be Fort Knox. If self-pity was a paintbrush, I could paint the whole town red. If pain could stuff a pillow, it would fill my empty bed. If missing joy was medicine, I'd live to 103. And if tears were only calories, just think how thin I'd be. If guilt could turn to gold, then I would have the Midas touch. If sadness wasn't real, I wouldn't miss my dog so much. If memories were magic, it would make love reappear. And if sorrow came with miracles, my friends would still be here. If fear could fuel a fire, I've the matches in my hand. If worry was a wave, I'd write my name there in the sand. If a burden was a ballad, well, it would sure be in my key. But since misery loves company, I'm glad you're here with me. And if tears were only calories, Just think how thin